Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner. This is stage 19 of the Vuelta, España 2021. 191 kilometers, about 120 miles in length, and 3 climbs all coming at the beginning of the stage. The first 95 kilometers of the stage is hilly, but then after that, it looks like it could be a field sprint. Problem is, when the cameras come on with 95 kilometers to go, we got a breakaway of 18 riders at about 2 minutes and 45 seconds. When the camera pans back to the peloton, it's Team DSM on the front chasing. Now, when you're sitting on the Chesterfield, you don't exactly know why, because DSM have a rider in the break. Nico Denz is up there representing the DSM team. Takes a few more kilometers before we start finding out that Fabio Jakobsen, the Kunik Quick-Step, is off the back. Now that's going to change all of the tactics on today's race, because Fabio Jakobsen has won 3 sprint stages already at this year's tour, and Alberto Danesi, the DSM sprinter, has always come in the podium, but always behind Jakobsen on the field sprints. So with the Kunik Quick-Step off the back, all of a sudden DSM are looking in a prime position to be able to win a sprint stage on today's stage 19. Now, the break starts coming down in time, all the way down to about 1 minute and 30, and that's when the break starts attacking. With 70 kilometers to go, they're attacking each other left and right. With 55 kilometers to go, the breakaway of 18 riders is in pieces, and riders are spread out all over the place as they're chasing each other crazy, trying to stay away from the peloton. Now, at this point in time, you're asking yourself what's going on. They have to get rid of all the dead weight. All of the riders sitting on there are causing the chemistry in the front group of 18 to not gel well, so that's why you're seeing all these attacks. Now, with 50 kilometers to go, the breakaway is established with 11 riders up front. The problem is DSM Nico Denz is still up there representing DSM, and that's still dead weight. Now, he's been sitting on from at least 95 kilometers to go when the cameras turned on that I could see, so DSM is still back there chasing, but now they're chasing 11 riders with their teammates still sitting on as everyone else from the break has been absorbed. With 45 kilometers to go, DSM start getting some help in the form of Bike Exchange on the front right now. With 2 teams chasing now, it's almost certain that the break is going to get caught. With 43 kilometers to go, it's Intermarché's Louis Meintjes that goes down hard. He won't get up, and he'll end his Tour of Spain here on the pavement. Now, hopefully up front, you thought maybe they could wait, but it's not going to happen because it's Bike Exchange on the front driving it as hard as they can. There's no way at this point in time that Bike Exchange has the energy to be able to stop and wait to see if Louis Meintjes was going to get back on his bike and return, because the 11 guys up front are just driving fast. Now, a couple kilometers later, we'll see the feeder out in the road, and it's the Astana rider, Ion Izagirre, and he makes a crucial mistake right here. The feeder is in the middle of the road. All the riders are on the left. The feeder is in the dead center. And then it's Ion Izagirre that tries to go right around the feeder. As the feeder panics, he moves right too, and they collide into each other. Ion Izagirre does not crash, but we'll see him put his foot out, probably smashing it into the ground and causing some pain. Now, when I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, the commentators cannot believe that the feeder is in the middle of the road. And I'm here to tell you that is the way it is. It always has been, because the UCI is too busy making rules against the super tuck position there, that they haven't made rules to keep the feeders closer to the edge of the road. But I want to point this out. This is not the feeder's fault. This is the way they've always done it. Do I agree with it? No, but it's always done that way. This was the fault of Ion Izagirre. As a rider, you never go between the feeder and the curb. If you do, you know the feeder's going to panic and he's going to run for the curb. It's like when you come up to a squirrel and you're riding your bike and they dodge left and right. They don't know what to do. It's always going to happen. I can't tell you how many times throughout my career I have seen feeders out in the middle of the road, and as soon as a rider goes between him and the curb, the feeder always panics and runs, and then there's a crash. Now, Ion Izagirre was lucky because he didn't crash, and he'll get back up to the front group. Now up front, though, with 35 kilometers to go, it's Quinn Simmons having a discussion there with Nico Denz, the DSM rider. Moments after that discussion, Quinn Simmons is attacking going up the road, and it's Rui Oliveira, the UAE Team Emirates rider, that's going with him. Behind, it's a furious chase in the group of 11. Mark Padone, Damien Tuss are chasing Bajoli, Anthony Roux, Magnus Cort Nelson, who's chasing Lawson Craddock, with Andreas Krohn, who are chasing Quinn Simmons and Rui Oliveira. It's a fantastic battle there in the break. And I want to point out the biggest thing that happens when it regroups at 25 kilometers to go, there's only 7 now up front because they dropped the DSM rider Nico Dens, who went back to the peloton. Now, this gets a little bit crazy because now with the DSM rider out, they have 7 guys up front and it can gel really well and they can work well together all the way to the finish, and it's only 25 kilometers to go. They only have a 30-second gap, and behind it's only one team chasing, Bike Exchange back there, because DSM decided to take a break. Now I know DSM was chasing hard, but from 40 kilometers to go until 25 kilometers to go, they have not ridden the front, and they need to get back up to the front, because with the DSM rider dropping out, Nico Dens, now all of a sudden the group of 7 that's left up front, those guys can work well together. Here was the big problem with the tactics with Nico Dens. Now, I'm not saying he's a knucklehead by any means, because we're late into the Vuelta. We're almost finished wrapping up this Tour of Spain, and we're late into this stage 19. Nico Dens might not have had the ability to follow one of the EF Education riders. But if I'm Nico Dens, when the group was still 11 riders strong back there, my main focus would have been to eliminate Magnus Cort Nelson, or at least Lawson Craddock. Now, he didn't follow either of those wheels. At no point in time did I see him actually locked onto the wheel there of Magnus Cort Nelson. Instead, he gets dropped with who? Esquetel, Esquidi rider Soto. That is not helping the cause of DSM. So when he comes back, now with 2 EF Education riders up there in a group of 7, you know there's going to be power all the way to the line, right? Normally when the groups are chasing from behind at 30 seconds, they're going to believe that there could be some cat and mouse between that group of 7. But when you see 2 teammates, and one is 2-time stage winner, Vuelta España stage winner at this year's Vuelta, Magnus Cort Nelson, Lawson Craddock, you know, is going to be there 100% for his teammate. Now, in the break of 7 is FDJ rider Anthony Roux. Now, this kind of blew my mind away because he's rotating through 100%. He's not super fast himself, but they do have sprinter Arnaud Demar back in the peloton. And at no point in time does FDJ start chasing in the peloton. And at no point in time does Anthony Roux decide to sit on the front group. Now, remember, it's only 30-second gap, but they only have 25 kilometers to go, and that whole group of 7 is all rotating through 100% and 100% hard. Behind, with 16 kilometers to go, all of a sudden DSM decide to start getting back on the front. DSM, I don't know what you guys were thinking. You rode 100% to bring this break back and then sat up 40 kilometers to go. And now at 16 kilometers to go, when you're chasing the group of 7 that's only 30 seconds up the road, now you decide to get on the front. It's cutting it a little close, but there's still only a 30-second gap to the group of 7. Now the group of 7, as we start getting to 10 kilometers to go, it's still a 30-second gap. With 8 kilometers to go, they're still holding a 30-second gap. 5 kilometers to go, the gap is still 30 seconds, and the group behind Bike Exchange is chasing all out with everything they got. 3 kilometers to go, now we start knowing that the time gap hasn't dropped down. They're still holding 30 seconds, the group of 7 up front, and it's not until 1.2 kilometers to go that we start seeing the first sign of tactics and games being played in the group of 7, because it's Bajoli, the Deceuninck Quick-Step rider, that's the first rider in the group of 7 not to take a turn. Now, here's the problem with Nico Dens not following one of the EF Education riders, because Lawson Craddock knows he has sprinter Magnus Cort Nelson, 2-time stage winner at this year's Vuelta, in the group of 7 with 1.2 kilometers to go. Lawson Craddock gets on the front and starts driving it 100% to keep the gap to the Bike Exchange riders chasing hot on the heels behind, all the way back there at 25-30 seconds. Going into the last right-hand turn, leading the way is Lawson Craddock. On his wheel, Anthony Roux. Third is Quinn Simmons, the Trek Segafredo rider. Magnus Cort Nelson is locked onto his wheel, and then there's a little battle behind him to try to get Magnus Cort Nelson's wheel. When they come out of the corner with 200 meters to go, it's Trek Segafredo's Quinn Simmons that's the first to jump. Now, when he jumps with everything. When they're coming down the final straightaway line with 100 meters to go, Magnus Cort Nelson jumps to the left. Rui Oliveira jumps to his left, and it's a three-way drag to the line until Magnus Cort Nelson accelerates away, takes a fantastic third stage win on this stage 19 of the Vuelta España. Rui Oliveira will get second. Quinn Simmons pounding the handlebars while he passes the line for third. The Kunit Quickstep's Baggioli across the line for fourth. And last in the group will be EF Education's Lawson Craddock, who did a fantastic job throughout this stage and especially at the finish, driving at 100% for Magnus Cort Nelson to win the stage. His arms are raised up in victory. I got a better picture of him coming across the line than we did of Magnus Cort Nelson. A fantastic team effort from EF Education up front, the duo of Magnus Cort Nelson and Lawson Craddock to win today's stage 19 in fine teamwork. Now behind for the field sprint, it's DSM Alberto Danese that wins the field sprint for a spot. DSM, oh man, does that just hurt the soul. They worked so hard, and the only reason that break stayed off is for two reasons, basically. With 40 kilometers to go, they sat up and left Bike Exchange on the front. They didn't get back to the front till 16 kilometers to go when the gap was 30 seconds on a group of 7 that was 100% gelled. And one other mistake, and this one could be a mistake or could be just fatigue. So Nico Dens, he'll have to make the call on this one himself. But Nico Dens, you can't get dropped when there's only 11 guys left in that front group and you've been sitting on while your teammates have been chasing. There's no way you could get dropped out of that group of 11 and come back to the field with only Escatel, Escadi, Soto for company. You had to bring one of the EF Education riders with you, and it should have been Magnus Cort Nelson. If there was anything you had left to do, left in the legs that you could do, you had to follow the wheel of Magnus Cort Nelson. I'll let you make the call on that one, though, whether if the legs were dead and cramping and you just couldn't do it because it was the end of the Vuelta stage, or if it was a knucklehead mistake, you make the call yourself. Either way, we got to experience a fantastic Vuelta stage again on what normally would have been a 15-minute gap to the break on today's stage. Instead, it was exciting all the way to the finish. Now the top 10 stays the same, with the exception, of course, of Louis Menkes, who crashed out of today's stage. Up front, though, the red jersey won't change as Primoz Roglic will go into tomorrow's last hilly, mountainous stage. Should be an exciting finish to the Vuelta España on tomorrow's stage 20. And then stage 21, the time trial, will get the excitement of watching 2nd through 10th all battle to keep their GC positions. But we got to know, Primoz Roglic, he only needs to get through tomorrow's stage. He's looking solid, so I don't see anything going wrong on tomorrow's stage 20 for the Jumbo-Visma team or Primoz Roglic, barring an accident, crash, or something like that. Otherwise, Primoz Roglic looks to have this Vuelta España wrapped up. Make sure you guys like and subscribe because tomorrow's going to be another exciting stage at the Vuelta España, and I'll see you real soon.